A Celtic tomb was discovered, and what was inside will leave you in shock. It wasn't Egyptian gold, it wasn't Roman weaponry, it was a cauldron with Greek gods carved into it. Beside it, gold-plated jugs, Baltic amber, Mediterranean coral, all of it buried with a single man no one knows the identity of. He was surrounded by objects from 3 different cultures. But why? And more. Some archaeologists believe this tomb carries an ancient curse. This is not fiction, it's real. And it has just been discovered. You need to see what was found in the tomb of Lavau. In the small town of Lavau, in the Champagne region, an archaeological excavation revealed a tomb of great importance, dated to more than 2,000 years ago. This is an extraordinary discovery, but is this tomb merely the final resting place of a Celtic leader? Or is it somehow connected to the myths of immortal kings, whose treasures and mystical secrets were believed to be blessings from the gods? This tomb holds mysteries beyond comprehension. The deceased was surrounded by a luxurious bronze banquet set made up of objects of Greek and Etruscan origin, which had traveled hundreds or even thousands of kilometers to reach that site. Archaeologists identified the tomb as belonging to the Celtic elite of the Hallstatt culture, dated between the 6th and 5th centuries BC. Despite the wealth of artifacts uncovered in the tomb of Lavau, the exact identity of the Prince of Lavau remains a mystery. He might have been a tribal leader, an influential merchant, or even a religious figure. Since the Celts left no written records, it is difficult to determine his precise role in the Celtic hierarchy. Will we ever fully uncover the life of this enigmatic man, or will he remain forever a shadow in history? This culture flourished in Central Europe, where it was common for prominent individuals to be buried with jewelry and valuable objects as a display of power and status. These opulent funerary practices reflect the importance attributed to the dead in these Celtic societies, raising questions about the meaning of the objects buried with them and the origins of such wealth. But these objects were not merely demonstrations of wealth. They symbolized political alliances and were used to solidify relationships with other peoples or Celtic elites. The use of luxury gifts, such as the cauldron and the oinocho, was a way to ensure the loyalty of their allies. Imagine the impact of a banquet where the prince used a Greek gold-plated jug, reaffirming his power before his guests. Who were the Hallstatt Celts, and how did they manage to amass such vast treasures? Historically, the Celts were first mentioned by the Greeks, as they left no written records of their own. When comparing this discovery to Egyptian tombs or the splendor of Roman civilizations, it becomes clear that the Celts were far more connected to the wider world than previously thought. Their funerary practices may not have included pyramids or monumental mausoleums, but the artifacts uncovered here reveal an impressive cultural complexity. Herodotus, the Greek historian, was the first to refer to this people, placing them near the source of the river Istros, now identified as the Danube. He described the Celts as inhabiting areas to the north and west of Europe, close to the Danube's course, which suggests that Celtic territories extended as far as southwestern Germany, where the archaeological site of Honeberg is located today. In Lavau, the excavated tomb, contemporary with Herodotus, is situated in the center of a necropolis used for millennia. However, no other tomb compares to the wealth of this princely burial, covered by a funerary monument occupying nearly 1 hectare. Archaeologist Bastien Dubuis leads the excavations, assisted by Emily Miller, a specialist in metals. She is carefully removing a large bronze cauldron, decorated with heads of Achelous, the Greek god of rivers, and adorned with animal figures such as felines. The cauldron, possibly of Etruscan or Magna Graecia origin, reveals the scale of intercultural exchange and the sophistication of the artifacts discovered. These objects found beside the prince, such as the cauldron adorned with the heads of Achilles, may have had ritual functions in religious ceremonies. Some theories suggest that the Prince of Lavau might have been protected by an ancient curse. Each piece of this treasure, carefully buried with him, might not only have symbolized power, but also served as a shield against anyone who dared disturb his eternal rest. Could these artifacts hold secrets or ancient curses still unknown to us? Archaeologists suggest these items were used to honor the gods and ensure safe passage to the afterlife. To what extent did the Celts incorporate foreign beliefs into their own religion, or were these objects merely symbols of power and status? Inside the cauldron, another extraordinary object begins to emerge. An oinoko, a Greek jug with gold detailing, which is extremely rare. One intriguing aspect is the personalization of these imported items by the Celts. The oinocho, for example, was decorated with gold and silver after its arrival, raising the question, why modify such precious objects? Some experts believe the Celts were asserting their cultural style or perhaps adding deeper symbolic meaning to the item, further reinforcing its prestige. This piece, decorated with Greek mythological scenes, emphasizes the importance of the tomb and confirms that archaeologists are facing one of the most sumptuous Celtic burials ever discovered, dating back to the Hallstatt period. This Celtic territory stretched from the Alps in the south, across parts of France, to the Seine River, and eastward, reaching the Danube. The Lavau tomb exemplifies the princely phenomenon, characteristic of monumental Celtic burials. Despite all this grandeur, around the 5th century BCE, the great Celtic centers began to decline. Fires devastated cities such as Hoineberg, and many crucial trade routes were disrupted. This led to the collapse of several Celtic elites, unable to maintain their power without the steady flow of luxury goods. What truly caused the fall of these principalities remains debated. Was it the result of invasions, or perhaps internal conflicts among rival Celtic tribes? Other notable examples of this phenomenon include the burial at Hochdorf in Germany with Greek and Italian ceramics, and the tomb of Vix, where a massive Greek crater and a priceless gold torque were found. Since the 19th century, archaeological discoveries have revealed tombs filled with treasures, such as the cauldron from Anatolia discovered in Burgundy in 1846, and the graves of Giesubel Talhau near Huneberg. The famous tomb of Vix, discovered in 1953, reinforced the notion of a princely elite among the Celts, with its Greek crater measuring 1.65 meters in height and 1.20 meters in width, the largest Greek vessel ever found. Furthermore, discoveries such as the tomb of the Lady of Vix indicate that women played important roles within the Celtic elite. They actively participated in banquets and ceremonies alongside men, unlike in Greek symposia, where women were excluded. This suggests that Celtic women also shared in political and social power, reflecting a more egalitarian society than most ancient civilizations. After nearly 2 centuries of research, the princely phenomenon has become evident in hundreds of burial sites throughout Europe, with the tombs of Vix, Hochdorf, and Lavau among the most extraordinary. The site of Lavau, located on the banks of the Seine River, about 70 kilometers from the village of Vix, where the tomb of the Lady of Vix was discovered, adds another piece to the puzzle regarding the influence and reach of Celtic societies in ancient Europe. Archaeologist Bruno Schaume has been investigating the Lassois Plateau in the Vix region for over 20 years. Around 2,500 years ago, this hilltop was a populated center, and the Lady of Vix was buried in the valley below, beneath a large burial mound surrounded by valuable artifacts, including the famous Vix vessel. Her body rested on a cart, adorned with jewelry and a magnificent gold torque. Tombs of this kind are commonly found near rivers, indicating the importance of waterways to the prosperity of Celtic civilizations. The Seine River, which flows at the foot of Mount Lavau, runs for about 700 kilometers before emptying into the English Channel, suggesting that this waterway was essential to the wealth of the Celts of Vix. Similarly, the archaeological site of Heuneberg in Germany is located on a plateau overlooking the Danube River, another crucial axis for the development of Celtic civilization. The Danube flows for approximately 80 kilometers from its source in the Black Forest to Heuneberg, and with a length of 2,500 kilometers, connects Central Europe to the Black Sea, where ancient Greek colonies were established. Due to its strategic position among various European rivers, Heuneberg became a vital trade hub. The Rhine River, to the west, empties into the North Sea, providing access to the English Channel and the British Isles, while rivers to the north led to the Baltic. To the south, across the Alps, lay Italy, and the Rhone River to the southwest led to the Mediterranean. Heuneberg's privileged location allowed control over important trade routes, both on the north-south and east-west axes. The city's plateau was densely populated, with weaving and metalworking workshops surrounded by prosperous farms. At its height, Heuneberg housed about 5,000 people, an impressive population for its time and region. This economic and strategic importance led to the construction of fortifications to protect the city, enabling its rulers to accumulate power and wealth. Both Heuneberg and Mount Lavau flourished due to their strategic locations along rivers, which served as routes for transporting goods across Europe. In Vix, many of the artifacts discovered in 1953 are now preserved at the Musée du Pays Châtillonnais in the town of Châtillon-sur-Seine. Félicie Fougère, archaeologist and director of the museum, highlights the significance of items such as the amber jewelry found in the Lady of Vix's tomb. Amber, a fossilized plant resin, was highly valued in antiquity, and the Lady of Vix's bracelets and necklaces indicate its use by the Celtic elite. Originating from the Baltic Sea region, the amber found in Burgundy demonstrates the existence of long-distance trade networks linking northern and southern Europe. In addition to amber, another notable item in the Lady of Vix's tomb was the fibula, a brooch decorated with fragments of coral, a material of Mediterranean origin. This reinforces the idea that Celtic trade routes crisscross the entire European continent, connecting distant regions. The map of princely sites shows that amber was found in several of these locations, all linked by rivers flowing towards Central Europe. The Danube, for example, served as an important trade route, carrying amber from the Baltic to the Mediterranean via the Black Sea. Although the giant Greek vase is the most famous artifact from the Vix tomb, other banquet-related ceramic items were also discovered, such as an Etruscan oinoko used for serving drinks and a basin, both originating from Etruria in central Italy. Made of bronze, these objects highlight the importance of this material in antiquity, both for prestige items and for weaponry. Bronze was especially relevant in warfare, and a frieze found in Lavau depicts Greek hoplite soldiers equipped with bronze helmets, cuirasses, and greaves, illustrating its fundamental role in the art of war. During the Hallstatt period, bronze objects of Mediterranean origin circulated across Europe, and Lavau offers several examples of this trade. The cauldron found in the Lavau tomb, for instance, was likely produced in a workshop located in what is now Italy, underlining the broad reach of these exchanges. In addition to the cauldron, the site contains ceramic fragments and other objects from different regions of Europe. The import of Etruscan ceramics in particular intensified in the 5th century BCE, coinciding with an increase in the number of prestige items buried in Celtic tombs. The wealth found in Celtic princely tombs, such as those of Vix and Lavau, reflects the vast extent of trade networks linking northern and southern Europe, confirming the central role that rivers played in the development of these civilizations. The Lavau tomb, dated to the 5th century BCE, stands out for its impressive number of foreign artifacts, including a dozen Etruscan pieces. a common feature in elite Celtic graves of the period. Among the rarest items are cutlery, an unusual find. The most valuable objects were carefully arranged in a specific section of the tomb, such as the oinoko, a jug decorated with black figure designs placed inside a cauldron. The figures on the oinoko evoke the region of Athens, while the cauldron, adorned with heads of the god Achelous, was produced in Magna Graecia or Etruria. Other items, like a small jug and a bucket known as a cister, also come from Etruscan origins. The amber around the deceased's neck came from the Baltic Sea, and the coral on the pins of their clothing came from the Mediterranean. These luxury objects, which traveled hundreds or even thousands of kilometers to reach the hands of the Hallstatt elite over the course of 2 centuries, held great value for the Celts, even without a monetary economy. Since the Hallstatt Celtic culture never used coins, the exact form of exchange involved in acquiring these items remains a mystery, but it is clear that they played a central role in society, both functionally and symbolically. Laurent Olivier, archaeologist and curator at the National Archaeology Museum in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, studies the social relationships between the Celts and Mediterranean peoples. He highlights 2 Mediterranean luxury items: an Etruscan vessel known as a stemmed nose, used to store beverages, and a kantharos, a 2-handled Greek cup, both made of ceramic. These items were likely gifts offered by Mediterranean traders to Celtic leaders in exchange for trade exclusivity or access to raw materials. Beyond their practical use, these objects conferred great prestige upon their owners, symbolizing social status and political alliances. More than simple luxury goods, these Mediterranean artifacts acquired significant symbolic value when integrated into the Celtic context, as seen with the stamnos and scales found in the princely tomb of Castell in the Aube region. In addition to imports, highly valuable objects were also produced locally, such as the beautiful gold artifacts from the Celles-sur-Seine tomb. These items circulated among the Celtic elite as a means of demonstrating power and status. In the absence of a monetary economy, these objects were not purchased but obtained through exchanges or as prestige gifts, reinforcing social hierarchies. Gifting valuable items was a way for Celtic leaders to consolidate their power and secure alliances. The cycle of donations generated symbolic debts, which in turn ensured the loyalty and subordination of the recipients, creating networks of power that strengthened the donors' positions. These luxurious objects, such as those found in Lavau, were not mere material goods, but essential instruments in the construction and maintenance of these power networks. The personalization of imported artifacts, like the oinocho from Lavau, reinforces this idea. Decorated with gold and silver by the Celts, the vase was embellished, which raised the question, why did the Celts personalize these objects? This practice might have served either to repair or to beautify the items, or perhaps it was a way of culturally appropriating them. The addition of ornaments was common in rich tombs, especially on vessels used during banquets. These objects passed among guests, symbolizing the power of their owners. Museums, such as the Louvre and the Landesmuseum Württemberg in Stuttgart, preserve examples of this practice. In the tomb of Klein Asperg, Greek cups were restored by the Celts with gold leaf after having been broken, adding value and beauty to the original objects. For the Celts, the process of restoration went beyond repair, giving the objects new meaning and greater prestige. Another intriguing example is the famous Hochdorf cauldron, decorated with lion figures. While 2 of the lions were of Greek origin, the third was a reproduction made by the Celts in a simpler style, demonstrating the Celts' cultural adaptation in reinterpreting foreign objects. These cauldrons, like the one from Hochdorf, which held 300 litres of mead, and the immense cauldron from Vix, with a capacity of 1,100 litres of wine, reveal the central role of alcohol in Celtic societies. The consumption of alcoholic beverages during banquets reinforced social bonds and the sense of belonging among members of the elite. These objects, besides being beautiful and functional, were fundamental in the social and political interactions of the Celts. The consumption of drinks at banquets promoted unity between leaders and their allies, consolidating power within and between Celtic tribes. In Hallstatt culture Celtic society, the banquet played a central role in social and political interactions. By organizing these events, Celtic leaders had the power to distribute food and, above all, alcohol, consolidating their status and reinforcing alliance networks. These banquets not only served to demonstrate wealth, but also strengthened social and political ties, with leaders distributing valuable items to secure the loyalty of their followers. Unlike the Greek practice, where symposia were exclusive to men, Celtic women also participated actively in banquets, suggesting a significant role in shared power during these events. This female inclusion indicates the importance of women in positions of authority in Celtic societies. Bettina Arnold, an archaeologist from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, studied gender representations in Celtic burials and observed that, while male burials were generally associated with weapons, such as spears, daggers, and swords, female burials contained an abundance of jewelry, such as bracelets, elaborate headdresses, and pins. Furthermore, female burials often displayed symmetry in the arrangement of their ornaments, while male burials highlighted elements such as iron neck rings. Pierre-Yves Milson, another archaeologist, noted that in Cantal, the central tombs of many necropolises belonged to women, suggesting that they held high social status, comparable to that of men, with burials that included heavy gold adornments. A striking example of this female importance is the tomb of the Lady of Vix. The bronze crater found in her tomb, the largest ever discovered, is a clear symbol of her prominent position. Decorated with figures preparing for war, the crater suggests that the Lady of Vix held not only social influence, but also political power, possibly playing a decisive role in matters of war and peace. This challenges the traditional view that Celtic women were relegated to secondary roles, indicating that in some societies they shared political and military power with men. In this context, the Lady of Vix could be seen as a true queen, ruling over a vast community. The territory she governed included the Mont-Lassois Plateau, a fortified settlement that housed a large population. With approximately 45 hectares within the city walls, the plateau was densely populated, and the upper area, around 5 hectares, contained the most important buildings, such as the so-called Palace of the Lady of Vix. This monumental structure, 35 meters long and 22 meters wide, stood between 15 and 20 meters high, equivalent to a 4-story building, and could accommodate hundreds of people. Around the palace, several smaller houses were distributed, enclosed by palisades that marked private areas, demonstrating a hierarchical social organization similar to other Celtic cities, such as Heuneburg. The fortifications of Mont-Lassois, studied by Thomas Pertweiser and his team from the University of Vienna, were impressive, featuring a double line of defense that surrounded the plateau. These walls not only provided military protection, but also held strong symbolic significance, projecting an image of power and prosperity that intimidated potential enemies and reinforced the authority of the Queen of Vix over her community. The fortifications facing the Seine River also highlight the importance of this waterway for the region's economic and military control. Therefore, the figure of the Lady of Vix, or Queen of Vix, as many suggest, was not merely a symbolic or social leader. She played a crucial role in the political and military power of her community, governing a highly stratified society with vast material and symbolic resources. This shared leadership between men and women in Celtic societies, especially among the elite, reflects a more complex and egalitarian social structure than previously thought. As the excavations at Lavau came to an end, the archaeological team was determined to identify the gender of the individual buried in the richly furnished tomb. Initially, the presence of jewelry and adornment suggested that the person was a woman. However, more detailed analyses of the skeleton indicated that the deceased was, in fact, a man, now known as the Prince of Lavau. The abundance and luxury of the objects found around him, including ceramics, jewelry, and a cauldron, demonstrate his position of great power and influence, suggesting that his territory likely spanned a vast region. The Prince of Lavau ruled during a period of great prosperity for the Celtic elites, much like other contemporary power centers such as Huneberg and Mont-la-Soie. The Huneberg Plateau, located above the Danube River, dominated the landscape impressively, with walls made of silt bricks that gleamed from a distance. Like Lavau, Huneberg was a strategic power center. Its fortifications served not only to protect, but also to assert the dominance and authority of the Celtic elites over their territories. The influence of the Celtic elites extended beyond their main settlements. Around Huneberg, for example, there was a network of other fortified settlements and burial mounds stretching along the Danube. One such site, Altenburg, about 8 kilometers from Huneberg, suggests a possible religious or symbolic function and could be seen from the main center on clear days. These locations show that the Celtic elites maintained control over vast areas and that their power centers were interconnected, both physically and symbolically. However, this period of prosperity did not last. Around 530 BC, when a great fire devastated Huneberg, and many believe it was the result of an attack by a rival center, Hohenasperg. Although the city was briefly rebuilt, another fire in the 5th century BC led to its final abandonment, reflecting the decline of other Celtic power centers during the same period. The collapse of these Celtic principalities appears to be linked to the decline of trade routes with the Mediterranean, particularly with the Greeks and Etruscans, who provided luxury goods and cultural influences. The loss of these connections deprived the Celtic elites of the items that symbolized their power and status, weakening the social and economic system that sustained these societies. In Vix, beyond the destruction caused by fire, there were also signs of deliberate violence. The statues representing the Lady of Vix and a soldier were decapitated, an act that appears to have been an attempt to erase the memory of the ruling elites. This kind of symbolic attack suggests that, in addition to physical destruction, there was a rejection of the power structures those elites embodied. In the Mediterranean, new trade routes emerged in the second half of the 6th century BCE, further isolating the Celtic principalities. This isolation contributed to the end of Greek and Etruscan imports, marking a shift in social dynamics. The Celtic society, once deeply connected to the Mediterranean world, began to turn inward, placing greater emphasis on military aspects and more traditional values. The tomb of the Prince of Lavau, discovered 2,500 years later, reflects a transition between two eras. He was buried in grand style, much like the Lady of Vix, surrounded by symbols of wealth and power such as Banquet ceramics and a cauldron filled with alcohol. These objects indicate that he, like other members of the Celtic elite, played an important role in his society, possibly interacting with other Celtic or Mediterranean leaders of his time. Although the Hallstatt Celtic civilization has vanished, its legacy endures. They built great cities, traded with distant peoples, and gave women a meaningful role in their societies. The impressive ruins and artifacts they left behind continue to fascinate archaeologists and scholars who strive to understand how such a prosperous civilization could have disappeared. The true reasons behind the collapse of this culture remain unknown and continue to intrigue explorers of the past, lingering as a mystery likely to endure for a long time. It's as if we are facing a true Celtic King Arthur, a figure shrouded in legend, whose tomb leaves us with more questions than answers. The Prince of Lavau remains an enigma, a shadow from the past we may never fully unravel. And now, the question is yours. Could there be other tombs like this one waiting to be discovered? Or have they already been found, and no one dared to reveal what was inside? Thank you for watching. And now YouTube is recommending 2 videos just for you. And rest assured, you'll enjoy them too. Click and uncover more hidden mysteries from our history.